Hello, MotoGP World fans, and welcome to Talking MotoGP Mugello, this live broadcast going out onto our YouTube channel. Good evening, everyone. I see a couple of comments already by Van Erasmus, Jonathan Borg. Let's go. Good evening, everyone. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the brilliant information that you're bringing us on your MotoGP News Facebook page. Some real insight on that Facebook page. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out, give it a like, and watch out, because real inside kind of information that's always very, very, very accurate coming from Jonathan and his team on that page there. Certainly some information that I use, and I'm going to be using in one of my next posts coming up, because very interesting news regarding World Superbikes, with some interesting things coming into the World Superbike paddock. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for always tuning in and all your messages to me and some of the inside info that you give. Keep the work up. Scott Mordaunt, hello, how are you? Daryl Bryce, good evening, Rob. How are you and the family doing? Daryl, very well, thank you. I can tell you now, when I moved to the UK, I mean, we had a horrible winter. We had 4 months of doom and gloom. It was just pitch black all the time. It was freezing. It was snow. It was minus all the time. It really was a tough winter. But it is now 7 o'clock at night. It's still 27, 28 degrees. The sun only goes down at 10 o'clock, and it just gets hotter. I did not think I would be complaining about heat in the UK, and it has been this past weekend. I worked out with Zero Motorcycles in London, so I went to Ace Cafe on Friday, Stevenage on Saturday, and Milton Keynes on Sunday, and it was just boiling. I mean, I've got like a proper tan going, and I just cannot believe how hot it is. And it's a different heat to South Africa. It's like 27 degrees, which is hot, but it just feels like it's 35, 36 degrees. It's just crazy how hot it is here. So yeah, I got back home literally a couple of hours ago, managed to fetch my boy from school, rushed home, and here we are doing a Talking MotoGP. But family's all good. Nova had her first full day at school today. She's been going part-time for a couple of hours while we sort out her care plan. So the school that she's at, the little nursery school, they've accommodated her for a couple of hours, but she went for her first full day today at school, 6 hours of school, and she did so well. So very proud of her. Trey's doing fantastic. He got a merit award at school the other day for kindness, respect, and just being an all-round amazing little kid. So very proud of him. And my wife's just, the rock that holds us all together. So really, really enjoying it out here, and family's doing well. Daryl, I hope everything is well your side with your family as well. So thank you so much for asking. Hendrik van der Merwe, Cyril Gaming, Nicole Briet, as always. Joe Alves, thank you so much for sending me that picture from many moons ago of I think it was my final full season of national superbike racing in South Africa. A nice blast from the past there. Mariska Hutchinson, here's Akveer. Hello, Rob, and everyone else. Mariska, thank you so much for joining. Vessel Kruger, Sven Grunner, hey Rob, and also great. Sven is one of our top kind of guys that comes on here. Also very informative, and I'm very pleased to say that Sven will be out at the Sachsenring MotoGP this weekend, and helping MotoRider World out. So he'll be there. Managed to get him on the media role there for us. It's not an easy thing, but managed to get him on, and he'll be bringing us some behind the scenes information and everything going on within the paddock at Sachsenring this weekend. So very excited to have Sven Grunner representing MotoRider World there for us at Sachsenring. So can't wait for that. Evening, Rob, and all. What a race, the ups and downs. Warwick Evans, yes, it certainly was. I've got my list. Robert Swart, here in the UK, we moan when it's cold, and we moan when it's hot. That's exactly what's happening. Hey, we're never happy. Rogue Hutchinson, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure just before your bedtime. Hello, young man. Hope you're doing well. Sinead Smith, evening. Hope all is well with everyone. Let's go, Rob. Beverly Orendahl, John Fernandez. So let's chat. Daryl Bryce, Vessel Kruger. 8 degrees in Joburg now. Yes, a little bit warmer than that. Rogue Hutchinson, phone off. Night. Go to bed, your mom says. Sven got a Sam Lowe's to World Superbike with Iannone and Mark VDS. Yes, I'm going to be putting that video up soon, talking about that subject of potentially Sam Lowe's and a Mark VDS Ducati team in World Superbikes. But I think the big talking point to start off with, and I put a personal Facebook post up on my personal page talking about it, is that we love MotoGP. I love MotoGP. I'm a massive fan. I'm very fortunate to be able to be as involved with it, have a media company that's involved with it, been to as many races as I have been. But it does upset me when we should be talking about how brilliant the racing is, and we do. Don't get me wrong; it's not all doom and gloom. But this weekend again, every second post was about race stewards and them getting it wrong and making these ridiculous, pathetic decisions. And it does upset me because it's bad marketing, it's bad publicity, it's bad light for MotoGP, for promoting the sport. If I look at Formula One, when they post up on their YouTube channel the race highlights, within a day they've got 4.556 million views. MotoGP gets 100,000, by the end of it, a couple of 100,000, and this just doesn't help the advert for MotoGP. All this negativity, this bad publicity, and it's all come down to MotoGP and these race stewards. We've had this conversation time and time again, and it kind of fizzled out for a while because you just get fed up of it. I did the live interview with Brad last week, just ahead of the Mugello race, the week before, I should say, and he shed some good light on it, and it was a bit of positivity. Is that the race steward sat down with the riders, and Brad said, he always kind of keeps his mouth shut. And there's other riders that always come up and complain, and the riders were bringing this upon themselves because the riders voted for the race stewards to clamp down on these kind of moves happening in racing and penalties and stuff. So the race stewards said, okay, that's what we're doing. So they did it. And then they had this latest meeting, and Brad Binder still said in his own words that the riders voted for it, and this time now they're complaining about it. So it looked like there had been a little bit of coming together and a little like an agreement that, okay, right, we're going to let more racing happen and less of these penalties. Sprint race on Saturday, turn one, Brad Binder puts a perfect racing move on the inside of Alex Marquez, who crashes out with a little bit of contact, and straight away there's a long lap penalty, and we're back to square one. And it's just the most frustrating thing for me ever. So I didn't get to watch the racing live. I watched it later that night, and I've been sent slow motion replays. I've analyzed it 100 times because I had to kind of give myself the 24-hour rule, because I was straight onto Facebook and I was going to post this video of how pathetic is this. And then I thought, take a deep breath. It's a little bit more emotional because our Brad Binder was involved, but do the whole journalist thing, get all the points of view, really analyze it. And I think this is where race stewards get it wrong. I know they have every angle and they analyze it, but they analyze it for what? A minute, 2 minutes, and they make their decision like this. And Mark Dodgen, one of my good mates back in South Africa, a well-known man in the motorcycle industry there, he had he posted it. He posted a comment on that post of mine, and he got it spot on. Even with all the angles and that they've got, race stewards are just jumping to these conclusions. Alex Marquez in the incident straight away, hands up at Brad Binder, even threw him one of these, and was a bad reaction from Alex Marquez. But you can understand it, because in the same situation I would be upset. But you go after the race, and you really look at that again, and that's a classic turn one Mugello, or that's a classic racing incident. So the riders go in, Alex Marquez goes in a little bit too hot, runs wide, is offline. Brad Binder comes in, he's got a rider on the inside of him. I don't know if it's Zarco or Martin, I can't remember. So they come in, Brad Binder sees a gap that's rightfully there to be taken. He takes that gap, and when you watch the slow motion replay, Brad is there, Alex Marquez is here. So when the contact is had, Brad is in front of Alex Marquez. Contact, down Alex Marquez goes. I can understand Alex Marquez being frustrated because he feels like he's been tagged. But if he watches it again and he watches and he's honest with himself, he'll look at that and go, there was a gap there that any one of those races on any other grids, the Moto3, Moto2, MotoGP, World Superbike, World Endurance, any motorcycle racer would have taken that gap. And if you do not take that gap, don't go racing. And especially in the environment that MotoGP themselves have set up with a sprint race. So the sprint race is, you go for 10 laps or whatever, go. No hold bar, you go. You know, if you see a gap, you take it, because it's a sprint race. There's no time for this race strategy and save tires. You've got to go. You've got to take every single gap that you see. And that is what we love about motorcycle racing. That is what me as a former racer, you know, I used to love. You give me an opportunity and I'm going to take it. Brad Binder took it, rightfully so, fairly so. And there was contact and down he went. You know, the argument comes in that Alex Marquez, yes, you know, he ran wide and he was pulling it back, and he wouldn't have seen a Brad Binder on his inside because, you know, Robbie Peterson in the last broadcast that we did put it to perfection, is that, you know, they're looking there. They don't have this view right next to them. So Alex Marquez just came back across and contact. But for Alex Marquez to think that no one would be on the inside of him is a little bit irresponsible. You know, that the move with Brad was called irresponsible riding. What's more irresponsible? A rider running wide and literally just cutting it straight back, which, yes, you want to do because you want to close that line as soon as possible. But it's modern day MotoGP racing. If you think that the turn one at Mugello, it's not like it was the 15th lap and, you know, there were two of you battling out, or, you know, it was the first lap at first corner at Mugello. So what did Alex Marquez think? There was going to be no one on the inside, that he can just cut back onto his line and go? Of course there were going to be people on the inside. So who's more irresponsible in that? A Brad Binder taking a gap left by Alex Marquez, and when the contact was made, Brad Binder was ahead of Alex Marquez. So who's more irresponsible? Yeah, Alex Marquez cutting back and hitting into the side of Brad Binder that was ahead of him and crashing out. Irresponsible riding in the fact that he ran wide and he thought he could just cut straight back across. Guys, race stewards, Freddie Spencer, please. And I know I fought the battle for Freddie Spencer. I've kind of tried to justify a lot of these things, but it's ridiculous. It's pathetic. It really is. I just want to see the Jonathan Borg comment here. I know he said, let's start with Marc Marquez. I'll give you a first point, Marc Marquez. Jonathan, I'll come back to that. But I know he's made it. Yeah, long lap penalty in Moto2. I don't remember the rider. He penalized himself going long lap in race direction decision. Give him another long lap. This is absurd. Jonathan, yeah, so that was, I see Sven answer that, Alonso Lopez. So 100%. So cool. And look, that was one in a way that I kind of agreed with. Alonso Lopez just thrashed it on the inside of Sam Lowe's, and was there really a gap? Potentially. Again, you know, I would quite happily call it a racing incident. And getting back to my point with Mark Dodgen, this should be sorted out after the race for me. That's what used to happen with us, because, yeah, your tempers are flared and blah, 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 but afterwards we used to sit down, both riders or three riders or four riders, whatever, who's ever involved, you sit down in front of race direction and race stewards, and they say, right, let's watch this together. Let's go through. Let's get your opinion. Let's get your opinion. Let's sort this out. Let's get all the views and let's come to an agreement. If there's a penalty afterwards, cool, a grid penalty for the next race, or, whatever. But to be doing it the way they're doing and going, right, we've reviewed it from 10 different angles, for 1 minute decision made, you got a long lap penalty. To me, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work, because it doesn't give a Brad Binder any kind of leg to stand on, to sit there and defend himself and go, what are you talking? There's a gap there. Look, I'm ahead of him. And if, he plays out, or, look, represents himself and gives his point of view, you've got to listen to it. Take the fact that it's Brad Binder and we South Africans out of it. You look at that incident, it's a completely justified racing incident. The Alonso Lopez, as Jonathan said here. So, silly move, cool. He gets a long lap penalty. As I said, I think it should still be sorted out afterwards. But he gets his long lap penalty. Goes in, gets it completely wrong, costs himself even more, destroys his whole race, and they give him another long lap penalty. I mean, for goodness sake. Yes, I understand the rules are don't overshoot the white line or whatever. But surely only if there was an advantage had, then give him a second. There was no advantage had. He went into the kitty litter and he destroyed whatever chance he had at the race. He destroyed it. Look, he came back to sixth. So who knows, had he not had the second long lap penalty, he would have done better. But for goodness sake, these decisions are just pathetic. And on top of that, Sunday main race, Alex Marquez, a very desperate looking Alex Marquez, I must say, the way he's riding, and his brother Marc Marquez, but we'll get to that just now. Goes into turn one and nearly severs the leg off Luca Marini. comes steamrolling through, outbreaks himself, runs wide, nearly taking out 2 or 3 riders, didn't, but nearly. Again, tries to cut back on line. There's a Jack Miller. Jack still gives him the fluke and saying, what the hell are you doing, Alex Marquez? It was a stupid move going in. You still ran wide. So what's more irresponsible riding? Was that not irresponsible riding from Alex Marquez? Cutting through 2 riders, Marc Marquez, Luca Marini, nearly taking the leg off Luca Marini, running wide, not making the corner. So he was never going to make the corner. That's irresponsible riding. Then trying to just, once again, just cut straight back across a bunch of riders on the inside. What is more irresponsible riding? And then nothing happens. Nothing, not investigated, nothing. Okay, so because there was no contact involved, it's fine. It's not it's irresponsible riding. Is it not irresponsible riding? Yes, it is. And the race stewards are not doing themselves any. Freddie Spencer is not doing himself any favor. Freddie Spencer should be admired and respected for being the multiple world champion that he is, and he was. He's thrown that all away because he's become this racer that makes decisions anything but for racing, if you know what I mean. It's said that terribly, but why is he in this position? Why does he want to be in this position? Because he's just dragging his name through the mud. He's making himself look like a complete idiot. And when I spent that week with him, a lot of the points he made were justified, and I could see his side, and I still didn't fully agree with it, but I could understand it. I do not see the point of having race stewards there. I do not see the point of MotoGP spending the money on flights, accommodation, salaries, everything, to have those people making these decisions. I don't. I think the answer is to get rid of them. I agreed with Mark Dodgen to a point that some management is needed. I agree with that, but not the way it's been done. As you said, after the race, right, sit all the parties down and say, right, guys, let's sort this out. If you want to scream at each other a little bit, let's do that. We're all they're all athletes. They're all, this is what they do. This is their job. If you get into cock at work, you're going to sit in front of your HR or your boss or anyone. You're going to sit there and you're going to have it out. And it's, this is my point of view. This is your point of view, until you come to an agreement. Either you're going to get knocked a day's salary, or you're going to get into trouble of some kind, or your boss is going to go, okay, I can. But that's the way to do it, not this, right? It's in 3 guys' hands, and they can make the decision after 1 minute because they've got these different camera angles, and they feel that's what the decision is. Pathetic, rubbish in my mind. I'm done standing up or justifying race stewards. To me, it's over. It sheds a bad light on MotoGP entirely. I just think it needs to go, because it's not going to get any better. The riders just sat down with him and said, right, let us race a bit more, and then this happens. It's just absolutely pathetic. There were a couple more incidences there. Jack Miller's move on the inside of Marc Marquez when the rain was coming. I mean, it was a hard move. He shoved it on the inside, ran Marc Marquez wide. No complaints from Marc, because he knows that's racing. He does it. I dish it out. I must take it. That's one thing I do respect about Marc Marquez. We'll get into him just now. I don't like the way he's going about his racing at the moment, and it is more down to Honda, and it is more down to him being desperate. And you can see the riders out there that are riding desperately, which is Marc and Alex, to be honest. But I respect Marc for that. He never comes out saying, throwing his hands and whining, and that was a hard move, he needs to get penalized. He knows they are there to race. Can you imagine Marco Simoncelli, may he rest in peace? Can you imagine that poor guy in modern day racing? He would be pulled apart. He would just don't leave home. It's pathetic to where it's gone. It's absolutely pathetic, and it pisses me off, because, as I said, it's just dragging the sport I love so much just through the mud. Instead of the spectacle that it is, this fantastic spectacle that it is, the greatest sport on the planet. And I can't wait to have Sven on the show next week after he experiences MotoGP as a journalist and a pundit the way I'd get to. And it's the greatest thing ever. But then it's clouded, and you get this bad taste in your mouth with stupidity like this. And who knows where this will go. I don't know if I will. I hope Sven still gets his pass for this weekend after dawn to potentially watch this or whatever. But it's got to change. Get rid of them. The racing was fun. Valentino Rossi would not want to have won one world championship if there were race stewards, and it kind of proved it, because he didn't win the 10th title in many ways because race stewards or race direction got involved with the Marquez incident and stuff. You know, Mark, can you imagine? Mark would have not won the Jerez race with Gibernau. He would have not won the Casey Stoner race at Laguna Seca. He would not have won the race at Suzuka where he threw, Max Biaggi that. Valentino Rossi wouldn't have been Valentino Rossi. He just wouldn't have been. He wouldn't have been this character that he is. He wouldn't have been, because they would have just dragged him down, and they would have just taken all that goodness away from him. And it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting. Okay, I'm just going to catch up on some comments here because it's all about us. So I don't want to just me blagging off. Saw Alex do it multiple times again in the main race. Frustrated Jack as well. When and how do the stewards decide it's time to review his actions and long lap accordingly? Jaco does. So Jaco, this is my argument. So these decisions are made, and then there's no justification. We as the fans, or even the media, get no clarity on it. There's no, as Sven Gunnar commented on the one post in Facebook, there's no PR after the race. There's no, right, Freddie, cool, come here. I'm Simon Crayford, or I'm one of the other journalists or presenters in MotoGP. Freddie, come here, cool. This incident. Tell us how you got to that conclusion. There's none of that. There's no clarity, which just tells you, are they hiding something? Is it because there's just no real concrete evidence, and it's just them going, you know what, he did, there was contact and he fell, so we need to penalize Brad Binder? Because if any racer, and it's such a pity, I had such a special guest lined up for the show, and we will have him on soon, a multiple world champion, one of South Africa's first, John Eckerold. Yes, John Eckerold was going to join me, and I would love to have got his point of view, because hardcore, old school privateer, I have to do whatever I need to do to go racing and win championships. You ask any motorcycle racer, and I, on the weekend working for Zero, I was with a couple, my good mate Dale Robinson, who was a former racer here in England and over in America. Kurt Langen also used to race with the likes of Barry Sheen and all of these, and I showed them the replay, and I showed them, and it's just same sentiments. They're like, this is absolute crap. You are turning into Formula One. You are turning it to where strategy could win a race. You are turning it into where races are won outside of the track and taken outside of the rider's hands, basically. And it's pathetic, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. And I know I'll never get Freddie Spencer or any one of those race stewards on the show. I know it'll never happen, because they don't want to talk about it. And MotoGP don't want to talk about it because it's what it is, and we must all just deal with it as fans. No, because we are the fans, and the fans are the one that are paying your salaries and putting the spectacle on. And yes, I understand you have to look after riders, and it's about rider safety, but trust the riders more. What do you think the riders want, going out on the track every time wanting to kill each other? Of course not. If anything, it's going to bring back some of those rivalries of Pierre Francesco Keeley marching down Aston pit lane wanting to, give Cole Fogarty a backhand, and it's bringing back a little of that. But let them sort it out themselves. They're grown men. They are grown men. Trust them more. You don't need this race steward panel. Get rid of them. We don't need them making the decisions for the riders. Let the riders make the decisions themselves. As I said, after the race, if Alex Marquez is honest with himself and he looks at that, he'll go, you know what? Brad wasn't really at fault, and he didn't deserve a penalty. And there's incidents where, Brad's come out and other riders have come out and said, yeah, you know what? That was a bit stupid. Marc Marquez in Portimao, yeah, he came out and said that was a bit stupid. The problem for Marc Marquez is that it's happened so many times. It's eventually like your kid, where you go, okay, it's an accident, don't worry. It's an accident, don't worry. And eventually go, okay, well, listen, this is getting a bit crazy now. And I understand that. And that's like where Mark mentioned, there needs to be a little bit of management. Okay, but do that for the certain incidents. You're not going to be doing it for every single race, for every single corner. Manage the situations that need to be managed. You don't have to micromanage every situation. Please, 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 please. You're killing it. On that topic of turning into Formula One, one thing that I noticed that I don't like, and I saw it in, I think it was FP2. Brad was on the back of Luca Marini. Now, Brad doesn't go and tag, but he just happened to be on the back of Marini. And my emails. I'm not a fan of this Luca Marini. Was it Luca Marini? I think it was Marini or Bezzecchi. Might have been Bezzecchi. And he gets a message on his dash being followed by #33. Now, obviously, Bezzecchi or Marini, I can't remember who it was. Maybe you can comment. I don't know if anyone else saw this. Now you're going and you've got a fast rider behind you. It's going, this is setting lap times now to go into Q2. It was quite late on. Brad was on a good lap. Obviously he would, he was on a good lap, but getting that toe would just help and benefit Brad. And you're the rider at the front, get that message. You're fully in control of the situation now. Mid-turn, you can just go, oh, oopsie, and destroy the rider behind you, or just pull out of it and disrupt the rider behind you. You've given full control to that rider, and that rider has full control now to disrupt the rider behind, which is what happened, because Brad lost half a second because they didn't show what happened. We didn't see what happened, but Brad went from red sector, orange sector, half a second off, and it was half a second off straight after they'd shown us the dash that Bezzecchi or Marini was being followed by Brad. Take all that shit out. They don't need to know, because for me, that's a safety thing now. If I'm riding behind a rider, okay, cool. You should hear him. You should know that there's a rider behind him. But, giving him that information for him to go, no, right, I can now play with this. I can now screw this guy up, especially if it's a Brad Binder. If it's no disrespect, but if it's a Jonas Folger or a DJ Antonio or someone at the moment, you're not going to really be fussed, because he's not going to be there for long. But if it's a Brad Binder, that he's on a hot lap, and that he's got the potential to tag you and set a better lap time than you potentially. So you're going to roll off and screw him up, which is what happened. Take all that shit out. Why does Luca Marini need to know he's being tagged? Because, it's not fair that Brad now slipstreams him and gets a better lap time. It's racing. It's racing. Marc Marquez is tagging and getting the best out of that. It's what it is. I don't like it. And as I said, Brad Binder doesn't do it on purpose. I don't like how Marc Marquez does it on purpose. It frustrates the hell out of me. Marc Marquez is way too good to be doing that. But it just shows you where him and the Honda are at the moment, or not him, but where the Honda is at the moment, that's what he has to do. But take all that crap out of it. Don't give that. Don't let them have that. It's pathetic. It's just absolutely pathetic. Okay, I'm going to catch up with some comments here again. The audacity for Alex Marquez to put Baby on board. Please don't run into me. Yeah, it's Alex Marquez. I'm a fan of all of them, and I was hoping he was going to shine on the Ducati, because I did feel he had a couple of rough years at Honda, and I don't think he was able to show his true potential. But yeah, some of his actions and some of his reactions this year have put a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, especially after that incident. As I said, I think he's one of the riders out there riding desperately, and you can see him. As soon as he got into that podium, he just, that podium is probably kind of freaked out and crashed. And Mark's in the same situation. He's desperately wanting to go, and he's crashing. He hasn't finished a race. I forgot the statistic. I wanted to write it down and I forgot it, but he hasn't finished a race in how long now? Marc Marquez, his last race win was 600 days ago or something. I mean, it's crazy to think where Marc and Honda are, and we'll get into that now. I understand Marc or any other rider coming out of the pits could have distracted Pecco in quali, but and he overreacted. That was just Jonathan. I agree. I think Pecco did overreact a little bit there. I think it did maybe catch his eye a little bit, but Marc came out of pit lane. There was enough room for me. There was enough room to carry on. Had Pecco carried on with that lap and he had gone through turn 1 and turn 2 and Marc was still riding slowly online, fair play, then Marc's an idiot. But I think Pecco just got it wrong, maybe got a little bit distracted by that, especially because it was an orange Repsol Honda with Marc Marquez and a 93 on it. He thought this guy's come out and he's planned this to tag me. So Pecco just got, mind frazzled a little bit, and yeah, I think his reaction was a little bit over, unjustified, should I say. And I think but again, if he watches it afterwards, he'll go, yeah. Again, this is why you've got to give it not the 24-hour rule, but certainly a little bit more time for these riders to go back and analyze these things and go, okay, you know what, hands up, my fault, or not justified. Cool, let's just carry on. That's what needs to happen. That is what needs to happen. Mariska Hutchinson, how was Pecco's reaction during Q2 with Mark? I've just spoken about that. Sorry, I'm just going through all the message here. It is the fourth non-finish for Marc Marquez. Thanks for that, Mariska. It was too much from Pecco. Then again, he did favor to Mark. Well, it was, and like I said, I find it ironic that Pecco went and then tagged Marc Marquez to the front row. It's crazy. I'll keep my table there. So yeah, just overreaction, and you can understand Pecco at his home race, and I think these riders are just overreacting. And if for every action, there's a reaction, and this is kind of what's fueling the fire for race stewards. These kind of incidences, because they look at it and they go, right, we've got to step in here because the riders aren't happy. But just let them be unhappy. It's a talking point. Let them be unhappy. Let them whine and complain and throw each other fists. And Marc Marquez and gives him a sarcastic thumbs up. I would rather have that, because I would rather have that, and that excites me as a fan, seeing this. Oh, gee, what's going to happen? Oh God, they're going to fluke each other, rather than, okay, he's got a penalty for it now. Oh, God, so that puts a worse taste in my mouth than Pecco overreacting in some ways. Josh McRae, Rob heard it was a poor tire choice for Brad, medium rear, not a good one. Josh, I think so, but Jack took a soft and it didn't work. A couple of other riders took soft rears and it didn't work. I just think that if Brad had gone on the soft, I don't think he would have competed maybe a little bit earlier in the race, but I think he would have dropped off, because I think the KTM is a little bit hard on tires. So I just think they didn't have the pace of the Ducatis. To be honest, I think those Ducatis were, just on it. I think Pecco Bagnaia, if I'm not mistaken, I think he won on a medium rear tire. So I don't think it was the poor choice. Reading and listening to Brad's debriefs, he's quite happy with fifth at Mugello against all the Ducatis, 366.1 kilometers an hour, people. And he still does that. And I think he outbrakes, was it Miguel Oliveira into turn one? I mean, if you look, the average was like 347, the odd 355, 366. So he was almost 20 k's an hour faster than the average on most fast laps. I think Pecco Bagnaia's qualifying time was 255 or something. So he was 10 k's an hour faster than the fastest Ducati. I mean, Brad Binder, I wish we had spoken to him after to ask him, how that must have felt. But we will speak to him later in the year, I'm sure. But that is just madness. And then to still stop the bike, back it in and shove it on the inside of Miguel Oliveira. I mean, that you just have to be a fan of Brad Binder, whether you're from South Africa or not. You watch that and it's just epic. It's just absolutely epic. Wimpy Vandenberg, Rob, can you explain KTM was the fastest bike, but they could do nothing to Ducatis? It's all about grid position. So, Wimpy, it's pretty simple. It's not always the fastest bike wins, and I think Ducati proved it this weekend. In many ways, that Ducati maybe dial it down a little bit, because they certainly, they were consistently up there in the top speed department, but the KTMs were the fastest speed-wise. And, Simon Crafar said it perfectly, because Mugello is a faster corner coming onto the front straight, whereas other tracks are slow kind of corners that you drive out of. And that's where really Ducati take full advantage with their bike, is coming out of those slow corners. This being a slightly faster corner onto the front straight benefited and helped a lot. It certainly helped Fabio and the Yamahas early on in FP1. The Hondas, Alex Rins was right up there as well. The others just progressed where the Yamahas and the Hondas didn't so much. But the KTMs were fast, because even in the race, Jack Miller was slipstreamed by Martin and was only right at the end that Ducati came. So the KTMs are fast, and we've seen it so far this year. They've been able to slipstream and keep the Ducatis at bay down long straight. So speed on the KTM is not a problem. At a track like Mugello, again, I would love to get the thoughts, and maybe Sven, chatting to Brad and Jack, as I'm sure he will do at Saxon Ring now, because they're great guys, and Sven will, I'm sure, be able to get a little bit of information out of Brad. They'll tell you that there's still this little bit something missing, and Brad kind of mentioned in the interview that we did, especially trail braking into the corner, and there's a lot of trail braking that happens at Mugello. Trail braking and just putting the bike on that perfect line, there's still something just a little bit missing from the KTM. Also, full lean angle on the side of the tire for a long time. There might be something missing there. I looked at Brad, especially coming out of that right where you flick it and you go through that fast chicane, had a couple of head shakes. So, stability in one or two areas was still a little bit missing. But listen, it was a good performance. Fifth, the best out of, the next best bike after the Ducatis, made up in many ways for the disappointment of the sprint race, kept himself in the championship. I think he's fourth. Pecco starting to eke away, but, he beat Bezzecchi, who finished eighth, I think. Brad was fifth. He's second in the World Championship, closed in there. The biggest gainer was Jorge Martin, who I was really impressed with. Listen, if that Jorge Martin comes out to play more often than not, there's no doubt he's a championship contender. And he was in second place, starting to close the gap a little bit on Pecco. And then you thought, oh, God, yeah, here comes Martin, the old Martin again. He's going to throw it away. He's going to throw 20 points away. Kept his nose clean, kept his head kind of headstrong, brought it home in a brilliant second place, and has jumped up and right in contention now in the championship, where a couple of races ago, you were like, when he was crashing out, you were like, oh, Martin, here we go. He's never going to be a championship contender. Well, there he is. And this is why all the rumors now of him potentially going to Monster Energy Yamaha are completely gone, because he now realizes that, if he wants to be a championship contender, he's got to be on a Ducati. He's got a good thing going. Yes, he was upset that he didn't get the factory Ducati ride instead of Enea Bastianini. It's just as good where he is. A shout out to Enea Bastianini after a tough start to the year. I think he did well. I think he did really well. To come back, the time that he's missed on the bike, the development that he's missed on the bike, the race fitness, the race craft that he's missed, to come back and already be ahead of the likes of the Yamahas, a couple of the Hondas. Well, there was only one Honda left in Nakagami, and shout out to him, because he's the one flying the flag for Honda at the moment, the only Honda rider to really finish, I think, the last couple of races as well. But yeah, I was impressed with Enea Bastianini. So yeah, just hats off to him there. Let's go. Mark admitted that he wasn't looking for Pecco. Yeah, I think I've kind of touched upon that. My view is, I think that Pecco did overreact a little bit. Again, if you just take into, it's just there's going to be racing incidents happening on racetracks. It's going to happen. That's why it's called a racing incident, because they are there to race, and it's an incident that's happened on a racetrack. So to think you're going to get rid of that phrase, racing incident, it's never going to happen. It is never, ever going to happen. You have got 24 of the most competitive men in the world, not interested in motorcycle racing. If you play Monopoly, chess, anything against these guys, they are competitive. My worst thing in the world is playing any kind of sport or gaming or anything with Sheridan Rice, because he would just find a way to beat you, because he's that competitive that he would just find a way to beat you. And that's what these guys are. So how are you going to control that? A certain little bit of control has to come in, but you've got to trust them to control the situation. Why not? Trust them. Trust them a little bit more. Please, please, please trust them a little bit more. Honda, talking point, Honda. Alex Rins, I just feel for Alex Rins. You don't wish that on any motorcycle racer, on any person, to break your leg the way he did. The Honda curse continues. Joan Mir didn't even make it to Saturday, Friday. Joan Mir, I saw a rumor coming out today that will Joan Mir, finish the season and finish his contract with Repsol Honda. With everything going on at Yamaha, Franco Morbidelli saying, do I want to stay with Yamaha next year? Ask Lynn. That just tells me Franco Morbidelli's gone. That relationship's gone. I question Fabio's relationship. I'll get into that just now. But Frankie Morbidelli is going to VR46 Muni Ducati, surely, and Abedzeki is moving to Pramac. Surely, Franco Morbidelli will not be in Yamaha colors next year. It has to happen. For his career, it has to happen. And Valentino Rossi is looking at this. The Yamaha ambassador is looking at this going, I can't have my man on that machine. He's got to go. Does a Joan Mir go, well, you know what? Before I kill myself, do I just cut my ties with Repsol Honda and go to Monster Energy Factory Yamaha? Because who else are Yamaha going to get? Who else are Yamaha going to get? They have not a very attractive package at the moment. They have no more development coming next year with no development team in two other bikes on the grid, no satellite team. There's no attraction to Yamaha whatsoever. Their main man, Fabio Quartararo, who was world champion a couple of years ago, doesn't look bothered. His mind is everywhere else other than racing at the moment. Got rid of his manager, his longtime manager, started FQ22 agency. His mind's elsewhere, Fabio Quartararo, and you can see it. He crossed the line. Fabio Quartararo, when he was winning the championship or trying to compete, would come across the line, break his visor, and he would show emotion, too much emotion. Sometimes he had to kind of bring that in and hone it, and but at least there was emotion. No, there's no emotion. The guy's just, oh well, Franco Morbidelli beat me. I finished 10th. His press debrief is, well, we're not where we need to be. It's not good enough. We'll try at Sachsenring. It's a rider that's given up, and I still said it last year when he signed this new deal that he signed with Yamaha. He's got to put a clause in there to say that if in 2023 the bike is not good enough, I can leave. And I wonder if Fabio Quartararo has now started this agency and got rid of his manager, because his manager was the one that said, sign with Yamaha, it'll be good. And, now that relationship has fallen apart. I don't know. But, getting back to the Honda before we finish off with Yamaha, let's finish off with Honda. It's not good. It's not good. They have got a machine that, a broken leg in Alex Rins. I fear that it could be worse if Honda carry on the way they are. They are up and down, left and right, and they're trying things, and I commend them for that. But you've got to find a bit of consistency. If you're going to go Calyx, go Calyx. If you're going to go your Honda, go Honda. But you've got to find a balance. You've got to find consistency, because inconsistency is the worst thing that you can have in current MotoGP. Inconsistency will land you up in hospital, and that's what it's doing for Honda. The inconsistency of Honda and their project at the moment is seriously hurting their riders, and that's no joke. It was only a matter of time before Alex Rins seriously hurt himself, and it's now happened. Joan Mir is just damaged goods. He's just the walking wounded. He just lands on his head and he hurts himself, and you're guaranteed to crash a Honda. Taka Nakagami had a big crash over the Mugello weekend as well. Luckily, he walked away, and again, hats off to him. Only a Honda finisher, but with Joan Mir out on a Friday, you're not getting any development. You're not getting any information. With an Alex Rins out on a Saturday, again, you're not getting any development. Without bikes finishing full length races, you're not getting any input whatsoever. And Marc Marquez, again, not finishing the Sunday race, is getting no input. It's of no value. A Marc Marquez on the floor, and Alex Rins on the floor in hospital, a Joan Mir. It's of no value to anyone. But it's where the Honda project is. And I know Marc Marquez's reaction just sums it all up. That was for F's sake, Honda, what are we doing here? And I know there's all this talk that Mark's going to land up at KTM or this Husqvarna branded bike. And I think Mark is probably doing everything he possibly can to make it happen, because he now realizes my MotoGP career has been cut short. We all know that, with the injury and everything that happened to him. My lifespan in MotoGP has been cut short. I don't have time for an inconsistent Honda. I don't have time to develop a Honda to get back to the old glory days. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the body left, so I can understand why he's going, please, KTM, please Ducati. And they're going, well, what, yes, to me, Marc Marquez is still probably the fastest man on that MotoGP grid, in many ways. And he is a hot property, but what attraction is Marc Marquez to any other brand at the moment, to KTM? They've got Brad and Jack. Will Mark bring something? No doubt about it. Yes, he will. They've got Pedro Acosta coming. Do they go spend for KTM or Husqvarna or whoever, for the KTM group to take on Marc Marquez will be and put him in this Husqvarna team, or whatever, will be a 20, 30, 40 million euro exercise. I know KTM and Red Bull are big, but that's a lot of money. And that's excluding if he goes and throws a bike down week in, week out, which he's prone to doing. Marc Marquez comes at a big price tag. Ducati have already said, no, thank you. He doesn't kind of fit our mold. And I agree with him. I don't think a Marc would fit in that. So what are the options for Marc? Monster Energy, Yamaha. Honda. Just inconsistency. Well, you can't have it in MotoGP, and it's hurting them. They need to find a direction, whether it's the Kalex, whether it's the Honda, find it and just deal with it. And Mark's going to have to learn that if fifth is and sixth and seventh is where I have to finish, because, as I said, you're not gathering any information on the floor. And it's fantastic that you're qualifying second, as you did in Portimao, and here again in your front row. But that's just smoke and mirrors. That's you getting a tag, and Marc Marquez being able to just dig deep and pull out a fast lap, make the best out of it, which he's always been able to do. But that's just clouding the problems. That's just, sugarcoating a massive problem they've got there. You need race data. And if your riders are landing up in the floor and not even making it to race day, that is not helping your cause. So big problem. Big, massive problem for Honda. I completely agree with your Franco comment about Fabio. Sad Yamaha can't figure it out. Chris Guthrie. It is very sad because, Fabio Quartararo he looks drained. He just, this happy, smiling, always confident Fabio that has belief in his ability. It's gone. Yamaha have just sapped it out of him. And for Franco Morbidelli to stand there and go, ask Lynn. I brought it up, and Robbie Peterson kind of defended Lynn a bit and said he knows him very well and he's a very astute and he's done a fantastic job up until now. But I've said it in previous podcasts: is it time for change? Has Lynn Jarvis just outstayed his welcome there? Is it time for a new, fresh approach? Bring Davide Brivio. One of our followers mentioned it not so long ago. Bring back Davide. Something needs to happen at Yamaha. Because at the moment, I've used the word pathetic a lot tonight, and it kills me because it's a sport I love. But it is pathetic from Yamaha. Pathetic. What you are doing is not working, and you have drained the life out of Franco Morbidelli and Fabio Quartararo. You have drained the life out of them. They are not interested anymore. They are absolutely not interested to go out and commit. And why would they be? Why should they be when they're not getting it back and they're not getting any answers? So yeah, big problem. Jonathan Borg, Franco, VR46 agree. Bez Pramac agree. Yamaha still looking with Martin and had like 5 meetings, but Fabio splitting with his long-time manager. That's a big question mark. Jonathan, it is. Martin still talking to Yamaha. I mean, how Martin's not only giving up Ducati to go to Young, he's giving up Red Bull, he's been a long-time sponsor with. There's so many factors that play into this. It's not just a case of it's more money and it's a factory Yamaha deal. Great. There's so many other elements that need to take place there. And would it be MotoGP suicide for Martin to give up a competitive Pramac Ducati, a factory Ducati, to go to a inconsistent, who knows where it's going, Yamaha project? I think it would be MotoGP suicide, to be honest. Jonathan Borg, Yamaha also looking at youngsters from Moto2. Tony Arbolino is definitely going to Cressini Ducati in place of DG Antonio. DG potentially going to a Ducati World Superbike seat of some kind. I'll be doing a paddock talk on that hopefully this week. Who in Moto 2 at the moment is good enough? I don't know. Pedro Acosta is potentially going KTM, and why wouldn't he? The project's looking really good. He loves the KTM family. They've treated him well. I'm sure there's been some clash of heads at some point, no doubt about it. But there's no reason now. Beginning of the year, when things weren't looking good, there was reason for Acosta to go, and I still think there might be a little bit of reason for Acosta to go. Bugger that! I want a Pramac Ducati, or I want a factory Ducati. That's what I want. But the KTM, I think, would be a good move for Acosta now. So yeah, Jonathan, I know you say Yamaha looking at youngsters. Who's good enough to climb on that factory Yamaha? Toprak, to me, I think would have been a good option. He wouldn't have got the time. I'm not saying he would have done anything, but that's an option I would have liked Yamaha to explore. He brought them a World Superbike title. He's an exciting rider. He could bring something fresh and new to the project. They kind of dismissed that. He's gone to BMW World Superbike, and I think it's because he just wasn't getting what he wanted from Yamaha. The management at Yamaha now at the moment is just terrible. You've lost Toprak, you've lost Fabio, you've lost Franco. Mentally, you've shut them down. Who takes that factory Yamaha seat when Franco Morbidelli leaves it at the end of the year? For Franco Morbidelli for the commentator to say to Franco, do you think you've done enough now to warrant your ride for next year? For Franco to go, what do you mean? He says, well, do you think that's gone a long way for you to potentially re-sign for Yamaha? Do I really want to sign for Yamaha? And it was really that reaction. Do I really want to sign for Yamaha again? Or don't you? Ask Lynn. I mean, just you might as well just tell us there and then, listen, not going forward, I will not be on a Yamaha next year, because subliminally, that's what you said. Jonathan Borg, no way Mark will have a Husqvarna branded bike. If KTM agrees with Red Bull money to take Mark, he'll be on a factory bike 100%. So what happens there? Do you have a third factory KTM in Red Bull colors? So it's Brad, Jack. Do you do a Repsol Honda from years ago where it was Stoner, Dovizioso, and who was it? Hayden? Were they the three? I can't remember. But, do you go that route? Do KTM have the 30, 40 million to potentially make that move happen with Mark's salary, a whole new setup, a whole new crew? You've got to find a whole new pit crew. Mark would bring majority of his guys. There's no doubt about that. Mark comes with those guys. I would be intrigued for that to happen. I would like that to happen. If it comes at the detriment of Jack Miller or Brad Binder, I don't think it's fair. Paul Espargaro, let's be honest, is not going to be on that Tech 3 gas machine next year. Do Tech 3 run one bike with Raul Fernandez and Red Bull KTM run 3 bikes? That's their 4 bikes. I don't know. It's the more you see these kind of reactions from Mark, the more you think it's not unjustified. It's not at all unjustified. It could potentially happen. Mariska, the mechanics wouldn't want Mark. Too much work fixing the bikes after each race. After what Pitt said about Marc Marquez to KTM, I would think Aprilia or Satellite Ducati's friend. Listen, Aprilia at the moment, Aprilia could be one that say, you know what, we'll take on the Marc Marquez exercise because Maverick, I've got Maverick down here as a note. Maverick. Yes, he's got that 1 or 2 really good races in him, and yes, he's got talent, but you know what, he hasn't proven himself. He has not proved himself consistently over a season enough to warrant the salary that he demands, the status that he demands. He hasn't warranted it. He hasn't justified it. And if I wasn't Aprilia with Aleix Espargaro, your captain leaving, saying that next year will potentially be my last and I'll be a test rider happily. Marc Marquez and Aprilia. I like the sound of that, Sven. I like the sound of that. Daryl Bryce, Pit Barrow has already said he has no interest in Mark. again, could it be smoke and mirrors? I highly doubt KTM and a company own, tied in with Red Bull would say they have no interest in one of their biggest athletes of all time. I doubt that. But yes, Finn, I like that. I like that Aprilia option. I really like that. Landy, be a man, organize me a Brad Binder hat. Landy, well, we can certainly try that. My next race is Silverstone, that I'll go to, and I'm going to definitely ruffle up some goodies there, including some very limited edition signed replica helmets from Pecco Bagnaia. That gold championship winning helmet of his, only 1,063 made worldwide. I've managed to potentially get my hands. I've already got one. I potentially could get a second one. So I'm going to take it to Silverstone with me, get Pecco to sign it with one of his visors and hold it. So that'll be a nice collector's piece. And then the HJC are releasing top of the range RPH1 Jerez Red Bull replica, kind of like this Austin one that they've done. But the Jerez replica kind of looks like Brad's first MotoGP helmet that he went into MotoGP with, that color scheme. Going to get 3 of those and get our man to potentially sign those for me as well. So not actual Brad Binder replicas, but probably the closest thing you're going to get to a Brad Binder replica as well. So yeah, I've got some real nice items that I'm lining up for Silverstone. So yeah, look out, signed caps, hopefully some signed knee sliders, those helmets I was talking about, hopefully others. So yeah, some nice things that I'll be potentially getting from Silverstone. That of course is first weekend in August. You think Ducati might make space for Redding again? Ronaldo Poulton, Scott Redding. My paddock talk is going to Scott Redding is given up. Scott Redding is going to, I think, to Moto America to live the Hollywood lifestyle with his Hollywood wife. Scott Redding, I think his focus is again just shifted away from competitive motorcycle racing. I think he just wants to race. He wants to race. There's no doubt about it. He wants to race and earn money, but I don't think he wants to really dig deep and put in the work that's needed there. And that again kills me to say it, because he's a fine athlete. I've enjoyed Scott Redding on many occasions, but I just don't see it there, to be honest. And Ducati have got so many options. Ducati are looking at taking Zarco and putting him in World Superbikes, and the man's still finishing on podiums or competing for podiums. They've got an abundance of choice. Ducati do not have a problem, World Superbikes or MotoGP, of selecting riders. They've got more than enough in the pipeline. I did Vimpy. I loved Pedro's pizza celebration. Loved it. Pizza delivery boy. Loved it. Well done, Pedro Acosta. I'm enjoying Pedro Acosta. I mean, he just dominated Moto. He destroyed everyone in Moto2. Shout out to Darren Binder, who made his return. Good, solid qualifying, and then racing incident in turn 1. As much as I would love to get up and headbutt Fermin Aldeguer, no penalty is justified there. It was a complete racing incident. Fermin Aldeguer, again, you want to bring in irresponsible riding. Was it irresponsible riding? Yes, committed too much into turn 1. But that's racing. It's a racing incident, unfortunately, and our Darren Binder was involved. But a lot of positives to take out there for Darren Binder out of the weekend with his pace that he showed on his return. I saw a picture of that hand that swelled up. Still didn't look fantastic, but a lot of positives for Darren to take out. He just, he needs a little bit of luck to turn his way. He needs some consistent finishes, whether it be 15th, 10th, wherever. He needs these results, under his hat to give him the confidence and just to get a bit of momentum going, because just can't seem to get it going, sadly. Johnny Ray to Yamaha, Robert Swart. Johnny, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. He's sponsored by Monster Energy. You know what? The Kawasaki project's going absolutely nowhere in World Superbikes. I hate to say it. Sorry, Kawasaki fans, but Kawasaki aren't going to bring out anything anytime soon that's going to compete against Ducati, Alvaro, BMW, or anything. Johnny Ray is having to override that Kawasaki. Johnny Ray is a much better rider than 5th place in the current crop of World Superbikes at the moment. Kawasaki, just like Yamaha and MotoGP, are letting him down there. I would love to see it. Robert, you've just made a brilliant thing there. It won't happen. Listen, it's not going to happen. But I would love, if I was Johnny Ray's management, I would be going to Johnny saying, you know what, Johnny, let's look at this, because Yamaha don't really have many options. This, I did the interview. It's on our YouTube channel with Johnny Ray. He said he has no interest in MotoGP. It's not going to happen. He's way past it. Oh man, but I would love to see that. I would absolutely love to see that move happen. Let me know what you think in the comments. Johnny Ray on a Monster Energy Yamaha. Yeah, Rob, you've just, oh man, I would love that. Jaden Snayman, is Ducati looking at a Batista return to MotoGP, considering he's got a test coming up? Yep, announced today that Alvaro Batista will be testing at Misano next week, I think it is, in a 2-day Ducati, in a 2-day MotoGP test there. I don't think he'll make a return to MotoGP. He's kind of also said a full-time return, definitely not. He's kind of ruled out a wild card ride. I think there'll be a wild card ride at Valencia if he wraps this championship up, which he's going to do, kind of like, Bayliss and all those riders years before, wrap up the World Superbike title. Congratulations, well done. He has a Ducati wild card for Valencia. I would love to see it happen because, as I said in my last paddock talk, Alvaro this is the best version of Alvaro Batista that I think we've seen in his racing career, and I think he'll agree with that. I'm trying desperately. I'm going to Donington World Superbike in a couple of weeks. I'm trying desperately to organize an interview with him to ask him these questions. But I would love to see it happen. I would love to get proper information out of the test. I hope they give us lap times and what he actually did. Yeah, I think he's riding better than he ever has in his life, and I think he'll shape up quite nicely on a MotoGP bike. I don't think he would be good enough to come and compete in the current crop week in, week out. If I'm being honest, it's at a very high level now. Batista and that Panigale V4 are just, they're just the perfect combination, and it's got nothing to do with it. Yeah, sure, the weight is a factor, but he's not winning races purely because he's a lightweight rider. He didn't do it on a Honda in World Superbikes. He didn't do it in MotoGP for all those years. He's doing it because he's just at one with that machine. And as I said, whatever he's changed up training wise, I think he's given up meat, and I think he's vegan now. Whatever he's done to body, mind, soul, whatever is working, and it's the best form of him. So I'm really keen to see what comes out of that test. I hope we get good, valuable information out of that test. Chris Guthrie, Toprak seems to like his bike a little soft compared to MotoGP bike. Heck, Crutchlow did better than the boys when he wildcarded. Yeah, Toprak does like that. He likes a bit more of a production-based bike, as you say. MotoGP might be a little bit harsh for him. I don't know. I think where Yamaha are now. What damage would it have done? What damage could it possibly done bringing Toprak in there? He can't possibly be finishing any worse than where Franco, is. It can't get any worse for Yamaha, I'll put it that way. They could have gained something. There was more to gain than there was to lose taking Toprak there. I still think potentially the Red Bull, and Monster Energy factor could have come in. There's a couple of factors there, but yeah, as you said, Carl Crutchlow at the moment could probably do better than their current riders. So what could they have honestly lost out in bringing Toprak Razgatlioglu into that seat? Me, nothing. Johnny Ray. Yakodas, if Yamaha or Honda offer Brad crazy money to join to replace Fabio or Marquez, really crazy money, will Brad consider it? Just a thought. Yaku, knowing Brad, no. I think Brad has shown his loyalty to KTM. I think it's now starting to work. I don't think there's any reason for Brad to now look anywhere other than potentially a factory Ducati if it was offered. Certainly not a Honda or a Yamaha. There's no reason or justification for Brad to end this perfect relationship with KTM and Red Bull to go to a Monster Energy Yamaha. And then KTM, he could take the Red Bull sponsorship to Honda, sure. But no, I think Brad will be a KTM rider for if not for the rest of his MotoGP career, but certainly for a few more years. If not potentially Aprilia or Ducati, I think are his only options there. If I'm being perfectly honest. Surely Mark will put the ego aside, take less money and go for a winning package, even if it's a satellite machine, Jaden. I think so. I think he would. But there's still the admin that comes with Mark Marquez, the crashing, the crash ball, I bring my mechanics who no doubt come at higher salaries than what Mark Marquez or what other potential mechanics could come at. So there's a lot of other factors than just Mark Marquez's salary that comes into play. I think at this point, if you went to Mark now and offered him half the money he's getting at Honda now to be on a competitive machine, he would take it. I think if you offered him no money, it's not about money for Mark Marquez now. He's in the documentary, with his grandfather saying to him, "Why are you doing this? You've got enough money. You can retire now." Mark still says, "I don't need the money. It's not about the money." Mark Marquez is competitive, and that is why he's crashing, trying to put that Honda on the podium instead of just backing it off. Mark's not that person. Mark still has the competitive fire. He still has the talent. He still has the energy, the desire to win races and contend for championships. Honda don't, or Honda don't have the package to help him in the squad to face now. So, well, the other biggest problem is, where does he go? Who takes him? Sven brought up a brilliant point, and I've never really thought of it. Aprilia need to look at the Maverick exercise and go, has it worked? In some regards, yes, but in the long run, it's not going to work. We are going to lose our captain. Aleix Spargo again was the leading Aprilia rider at 37 years old, half an ankle after crashing his bicycle, riding around the track on Thursday, I believe. Mark Marquez on an Aprilia. I like the sound of that. Can take his Red Bull sponsorship. Miguel Oliveira's on an Aprilia with Red Bull. There's no other energy drink tie in there. They could throw all their eggs into that basket. It's a fantastic machine. It's a machine that I think Mark could get the best out of. So, I think other than the KTM, obviously because of the KTM tires with these Moto 2, Moto 3 days and Red Bull, of course, Aprilia. Why not? Why not? Would certainly be Aprilia's best chance to win a world championship with a Marc Marquez, no doubt about it. I would like to see Fabio Quartararo on Aprilia next year. CP Boerts. That Fabio Quartararo would be sublime on an Aprilia. A dedicated, passionate, hungry, championship winning Fabio Quartararo would be. Current Fabio Quartararo is not going to do much. He needs to sort himself out. He needs to get focused back on racing rather than, opening up agencies, and he needs to kind of reset. Does Fabio Quartararo, and it's hard when everything around you is going wrong and you're not getting the support you want, and the bike you're riding, you just can't find a solution. But is it all Yamaha? Well, they've got two demotivated riders because of the project. So you can't improve a project with two demotivated riders. It's not going to happen. You're not going to find the solution with riders in that mental space, and that's another big problem that Yamaha have got. Richard Hawkins, I saw a comment on another feed of Moto 3 changes in 2026. A bigger engine capacity was mentioned, possibly a 500cc. Ducati was asked to comment if they would enter. The reply was, let's see first. Well, Richard, thanks for that. I haven't seen that. That would be great. The biggest problem I have with Moto 3 now, at the moment, it's not affected too much, but in 3 years' time, with this new law that you have to be 18 and above to get into Moto 3, is we're going to have a field of very tall 18-year-old Moto 3 riders on small bikes. And that's reality. Have you seen 18-year-old kids these days? Rochelle Woodley has the talent to potentially get a ride in Moto 3 next year, and he can't. He's got to wait another 2 years, I think, before he's 18. The kid's got to spend 4 years in Red Bull rookies before he can go into Moto 3. It's crazy. Yes, I know it's a safety thing and whatever, and I understand that. But Moto 3 in 3 years' time with a bunch of tall 18-year-olds on these tiny bikes is going to be funny. It's going to be weird. So that's probably why they're talking about bumping up the CC, and that to potentially bump the CC up, and then 18-year-olds are riding bigger bikes. And I don't know. I'm enjoying Moto 3 at the moment. Don't get me wrong, but in 3 years' time, is it going to be as enjoyable with 18-year-olds? I don't know. Uncle Rob would love to meet up with you at Silverstone if it will be possible. Nicole, of course, we will stay in contact, and I will definitely make a plan to meet up with you. How could I not? One of my biggest supporters, and I flies all the way to England and I will not see her. Don't be silly. Landy, woohoo, free hat to support my hero. Okay, Landy, we will definitely try and make a plan. No promises, but sure. Sneak me in with you at Silverstone. I'll meet you there. Dustin Delaporte. Dustin, I would love to be able to give each and every one of you a paddock pass. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. It costs a lot of money, and I get requests all the time, and it kills me. I would love to reply, yes, of course he has a paddock pass or a pit pass, or it's just impossible. Sadly, I just cannot. I just cannot. So sorry. It kills me to say it, but I'm sorry. Hey, here's a thought. Marc Marquez on a Ducati Superbike, Daryl. I would still love to see a current MotoGP rider. This talk of Zarco going and winning a championship there. Sam Lowe's on a Mark Vidius Ducati. Digi Antonio going. Yeah, I would still love to see one of the current MotoGP guys go there and challenge Alvaro Bautista and potentially win it. That would be great, but definitely not Marc Marquez on a Ducati World Superbike. That's not going to happen. Mark Antle, hi Rob. Any advice from you on attending the Red Bull Ring race weekend? Mark, it is one of the best race weekends I've ever been to in my life. It is one of the best venues on the calendar. Just you've got to get a plate or a cup or something to hold you to catch all the drool. It is just, it's fantastic. It is just absolutely fantastic, that place. You can walk around the track, even if you don't have a grandstand ticket for those specific places, they've got a nice, outside that you can walk around, so you can look through the fence and watch other places. If you've got the money, which I know a lot of people don't, get into the paddock. It's a beautiful paddock. It's got the best media center in the entire world. It's like a 5-star Michelin restaurant, their media center. It's, some of the others you get warm waters and a biscuit. Red Bull Ring, you get proper food. It's, as I said, it's a proper restaurant, that place. So Red Bull Ring, Mark, you are going to love it. Just get there and just enjoy it. As I said, just walk around. They have great merchandise for sale all around the track, and it's a beautiful place to go watch motorcycle racing. It really is. Gordon De Beer, bring on Peter Hickman. Put Peter Hickman on the Monster Energy MR. There we go. Mariska, Rob, thanks for all the AJ updates. Yeah, we'll definitely, when AJ gets back to South Africa, we'll have another live chat with him to chat about his final week at the TT. Brilliant effort. A hand-built bike sponsored by a South African company, BMW Santon Motorrad, built by a little shop in Edenvale by the rider that rode it. A complete South African effort, not the latest spec BMW by any means, and he goes there and he completes all 4 races that he competed on it. The toughest road race in the entire world, and AJ and his bike pulled it off, and he did the super sport race. Mammoth effort. It should go down in the history books. There should be billboards of AJ Fenter all around South Africa at the moment for that effort that he put in there, and there should be a lot more support for AJ coming out of South Africa. I'm talking sponsors and money wise. I love what Checkers are doing with Brad and the 60-60 and young Aura, sending him to the Red Bull Ring. I love all that. I would also love to see more of that money going back into the sport, because yes, it's great that you're supporting Aura and sending him on these trips, and it's great. But the way racing is going in South Africa at the moment, Aura is not going to have, or any other rider is not going to have, a platform to race. It's as simple as that. If the bigger companies like Checkers, Pick and Pays, Vodacoms, and all these massive companies, if they don't start putting money back into the sport in South Africa, it's great what you're doing, but these youngsters aren't going to have anywhere to race. No one's going to have anywhere to race. The MRSSA series at the moment is struggling, to be honest, because it has no support from the industry. If I'm honest, us as Motor Rider World support it as much as we can. Beam Productions support it. We do it for free. There's no money coming our way for doing it, but there's no support from any of the manufacturers. Sadly, there's no support from any of the distributors or anyone in the motorcycle industry in South Africa, and that's because they are suffering. listen, it's not because they've got all this money in the bank and they're not willing to spend it. The industry's taking strain. So we need the outsiders, the checkers, the pick and pays, the whoever else to put money back into it. Because, as I said, great that young Aura is going to Red Bull Ring, and it's fantastic, and he's well deserved. Him and his family have put a lot of effort, time, and money into the sport. But then he comes back, and next year, when he wants to go racing, Short Circuit Series are doing a fantastic job. They've got, a company and personalities behind it, supporting it, putting money back into it, but they shouldn't have to. The parents of races that are running the Short Circuit Series are not the ones that should be having to fork out the monies themselves. The big companies should. So that's the sad reality of it at the moment, unfortunately. Mark Jagaskas, Gordon De Beer, yeah, we've kind of touched upon that. I don't know if that'll happen. Get rid of Raul Fernandez. I agree. I read a comment today that he was vomiting in his helmet, and Raul Fernandez is just not doing it for me. Little glimpses on Friday, had his arm pump surgery, and I just don't think he's fit enough. He had the arm pump surgery because he wasn't fit enough. He's vomiting in his helmet because he's not fit enough. There were scorching conditions. They're very, very hot. He's not fit enough. He's not fit or fast enough, is Raul Fernandez. If you look at that year, Raul Fernandez and Remy Gardner dominated Moto2, and we thought, these guys are the next best thing. And what I'm not saying, well, I am saying it was a fluke. It was clearly a fluke, because what have they done since then? Absolutely nothing. Remy Gardner's doing nothing in World Superbikes. So it was a fluke. Darren Binder, week in, week out, more often than not, was the better rider than Raul Fernandez in MotoGP on inferior machinery with less big bike experience coming from Moto3, and he did a better job, and he was snubbed. They went for Raul Fernandez. So yeah, I sympathize with Razlan and the team a little bit, but karma. You wanted him, you got him, and you got to deal with him now. But not getting the job done. Miguel Oliveira, we cannot judge yet because he has just been the unluckiest man in the world. I think he will get it right, and when he does, he's going to be competitive and challenging for top fives. There's no doubt about it. Miguel Oliveira is one of the best riders on that grid. He just needs a little bit of luck. Crashed out again this weekend at a race track where, for some reason, Aprilia really battled. I don't know why Aprilia are battling. Well, I do know why Aprilia are battling at the moment, because they're having to rely on one guy at the moment, which is Aleix Espargaro. They're not getting what they need out of Maverick, and while the others are progressing, Aprilia seem to have hit a brick wall. So yeah, Robert Peterson, how's it, Rob? Enjoying the show. Wish I could find something to disagree with you on. Robbie, we're definitely going to have you again. Just sadly, John, as I said, John Eckerold had to pull out at the last minute, and for justified reasons, don't get me wrong, and we will definitely get him again. And Robbie was my next port of call, but Robbie, I'm going to get on. Dave Peterson's coming on. John Eckerold's coming on. I'm going to try and get as many guys as I could. It was just because I was driving back today on the road. The admin to sort this out was just made it a little bit hard to get a guest at the last minute. So definitely have a guest coming on soon. But yeah, Robbie, it's our discussion and Sven and a lot of guys that have been there and done that when it comes to professional racing or racing at a high level. These things are almost common sense and there for everyone to see. And it's just crazy that MotoGP and the stewards aren't seeing it. That's the sad. That really is the sad point for me at the moment. As I said, it's just not a good advert when you go onto Facebook and there's just all this negativity. We should be. And then there's still a lot of, Brad's 366 k's an hour and, Pecco's masterclass. Take nothing away from Pecco Bagnaia. He was simply spectacular this weekend. Came in with a little bit of an injury, didn't let it fuss him, did everything right this weekend, Pecco Bagnaia. It was a masterclass championship, world champion performance. It really, really was. As I said, Jorge Martin really impressed me. If that Martin comes out to play more often than not, he will be a big threat to Pecco Bagnaia. Brad and KTM, I think, got the best out of a tough weekend again. Sprint race should have gone a lot better had the race stewards not completely effed it up. Did his best in the main race to compete there. Zarco, didn't see that coming from Zarco, to be honest. I still don't think, I think there's better choices to keep in MotoGP, for him to go to World Superbikes. I think is a good move for him. So yeah, it was a great weekend of racing in many ways, just again overshadowed by ridiculous decisions being made by these people way too quickly. Sadly, that's just where it is. Do you think that they will pull the riders out of Moto2 too soon and put them on the GP bike? What's your thoughts, Dustin Delaporte? Dustin, I don't think there's. I mean, Sam Lowe's is being competitive. He's not getting the, he's won the races and he's still fast in Moto2 is what I'm trying to say. And he's going to World Superbikes. It looks like Tony Arbolino definitely will be on MotoGP grid next year in the Gresini Ducati team. Pedro Costa will definitely be on the grid, whether it be a Pramac Ducati or a Gas Tech 3 KTM. Wait to see. Other than that, I don't think there's anyone else that should. Poor Aaron Canet just never gets mentioned in MotoGP because he's got, covered in tattoos, and not many teams see him as a presentable option, sadly. But he's also, hot and cold. So yeah, Moto2, there's not a huge great picking at the moment. I would love to say, yeah, Darren Binder, but he's not there yet. He needs a consistent run. He needs to prove himself in Moto2 before he makes that move. I've said it from the beginning of the year. Darren needs 2 seasons in Moto2, to show before even thinking about a MotoGP ride again. So yeah, there's not great pickings coming from Moto2 at the moment. So I don't think they're going to have that problem. Hi, Rob. A bit late, but no signal here in Penrith. That's from Rob Harpen. Gordon De Beer, what's up with the long lap penalty the guy served and actually loses out more? Yeah, Gordon, we spoke about that. Alonso Lopez gets a long lap, goes in, gets it completely wrong, costs himself even more time, and they give him another long lap penalty. I mean, it's just pathetic. It's just, I can't justify race stewards anymore. They just need to get out for me. That's where I'm going to leave that point. With everything that went wrong, Brad ended in it with a solid 5th place. Now we look ahead to this weekend. Yes, we do, and that's where we will leave it, Mariska, on a positive note. There's MotoGP Sachsenring this weekend where Brad is really, really good. Marc Marquez is going to be good to see where he is. I mean, he's king of the Sachsenring. Let's see where they are. Mark and the Honda, if they can pull off a miracle there. And then followed by Assen straight away the week after. So 3 weekends in a row of MotoGP. Yes, it's a long break after that. I know that, but let's just soak up 3 weekends of MotoGP, and let's just hope that there's none of this bad taste from the stewards that come into these upcoming races. Let's hope. But I think it's going to be exciting racing either way. And as I said, we've got Sven Gruner there that will be feeding us information throughout the weekend that we'll be posting up on our Facebook page. I will then have Sven as a guest if nothing goes wrong on the Monday night, talking MotoGP Sachsenring. It'll be great to have Sven, fellow South African, but right in the heart of the MotoGP action there. So we'll just pull as much information as we can from him and get his thoughts on what will be his first real MotoGP experience. So we'd love to hear that. Mariska, yes. Pity about Stephen Windall, but he did manage to win the one race, crashed out of the second. So brilliant rides from our South Africans. Jared Schultz, unfortunately, crashing out. Roche Moodley, unfortunately, still not fit enough to race in the Red Bull Rookies. So yeah, shout out to all of us South Africans all around the world getting the job done. I know a few of them are racing coming up now. Tay Jansen van Rensburg, Doran Loureiro, Dino Iozzo. I mean, the list goes on and on. AJ Fenter, as we saw. So yeah, big shout out to all of our boys, and a big thank you to everyone for coming up and supporting the show. Darren Binder, Sol Yamaha Monster Energy rider. Daryl, as much as I'd love to say yes to that, I'm going to decline that for now because I want Darren to win a Moto2 World Championship, to be honest, or at least finish top 3, to really have that under his belt and then go into MotoGP on a proper package. I don't want him to go into onto a Yamaha package that the project's just not there. I want Darren Binder to go and show his true potential in MotoGP. The best version of himself, which I think he'll get with 2 good years in Moto2, and on a very competitive package, which I think he'll deserve if he can be Moto2 World Champion, go in MotoGP on a Ducati and a Aprilia, one of those. And there are good seats that'll be up and available in the next 2 years' time, ready and waiting for the best version of Darren Binder. I checked with Arushan. He says Roche should be back at Assen Mariska. Thank you so much for that. Brilliant insight. Thank you for sending us that. And yeah, let's hope we see Roche Woodley out there at Assen. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in. I am sweating like a piece of cheese on a windowsill. Yeah, it's still so hot. I'm starving now. I'm going to go downstairs, kiss my beautiful family goodnight. Enjoy the rest of the week with them. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'll catch up with you. Remember, please hit the like button before you go out. If you haven't hit the like button, hit it. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit it. Go follow our Facebook page and stay tuned into our YouTube channel. Sorry, I'm getting nice and dry throat here, so I'm getting hungry and thirsty. And again, just thank you for joining in. Thank you for all the support. And I'll catch you next week, Monday, talking MotoGP with myself and Sven from Saxon Ring. Thank you, everyone. Good night and goodbye.